because at the end of the prophetic mission, in the last year of his life, after the Prophet was giving tarbiyah to the Sahaba, don't forget, they didn't all just start off enlightened masters. It took 23 years. And that last year of his life, a man came from out of the desert when the Prophet was sitting just like this with his companions. Sayyidina Omar would later tell the story to those not present, and he said, he walked out of the desert and his hair was exceedingly black and his clothes were exceedingly white. And he was remarking that because he said none of us knew him or recognized him. And he came out of the desert, but there were no traces of travel upon him. And then he sat knee to knee with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he asked him, "What is Islam?" And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "It is to witness that there is no God but God, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. To pray the 5 daily prayers, to give the zakat, to fast Ramadan, and to make pilgrimage, the Hajj, to Allah's house, if one is able." And the man said, "Correct." And Sayyidina Omar said, we were astonished. We were, I guess, ajib. That's the word he uses. That he would ask the Prophet something and then say correct. Because none of them had ever, right? That's not how a student speaks to a teacher. That's how a teacher speaks to a student. Do you know this? Correct. And so they were just in awe. Like, what? They'd never seen anyone do this in their entire 23 years with him. Because they sat with him and they were so present with him that birds could land on them. It was as if they were statues. That was their reverence for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they were so in awe of him that all the descriptions of the Prophet, his physical descriptions, were from those who were children around the Prophet. Because children, they'll stare. They're pure, they can do that. But the adults, they were so reverent in him that they couldn't look at him long without it overwhelming them. So then the man asked, "And what is Iman?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi responded, "It is to believe in Allah, the messengers, the books, the angels, Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of rising, the day of accountability, and Qadr, the good of it and the bad of it, khair and the shar." Qadr is the measuring out. You could translate it as destiny or preordainment, that Allah has everything. Ala kulli shayin qadir. It's all written by Allah. Whatever good is khair is from Allah, whatever is shar is from Allah. Good. And the man then said, "Correct." And he asked the third question. He said, "And what is ihsan?" And by the way, in the narration from Omar is that when the man sat knee to knee, he put his hands on his thighs. And the commentators debate this. There's whether he put his hands on his own thighs or whether he put his hands on the Prophet's thighs. But Sayyidina Omar, why did he mention these details? Because none of them would sit like, it was so intimate. It was like how you would sit with your beloved. And they had never seen this person. So he said, "What is ihsan?" And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "An ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tarahu fa in lam takun tarah innahu yarak." It is to witness, to see, to perceive Allah. Or rather, it is to worship Allah, or to devote yourself to Allah as if you witness, see, and perceive Him. And if you do not perceive Him, see Him, He sees you. And the man said, correct. And he asked the fourth question, Mata sa'a, when is the hour? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam eloquently said, the one asked knows no better than the one asking. And then he said, then what are its signs? And the Prophet said, the destitute, barefoot Bedouin will compete in building tall buildings. And the slave woman will give birth to her master. Sadaqa Rasulullah. And then the man departed. And there's a detail of this hadith that always really moved me. Sayyidina Umar then said, and then after some time, the Prophet asked, do you know who that was? And that detail is profound, because imagine if you would be there, what just happened? We want to know. No patience. They just sat in silence. Because they knew whatever we're supposed to know about that, the Prophet will inform us. And until then, we wait to receive. This was after 23 years of tarbiyah. Because we know Sayyidina Umar was the first to pull his sword, the first to, right? But he didn't say a word. He said, do you know who that was? And he said, I responded, Allah and His Messenger know best. He said, that was Jibreel who came to teach you your religion. Sayyidina Jibreel had taken the form of a man, a human form. And the angels are able to take different forms. They say the Prophet ﷺ only saw Gabriel in his true form twice. Allahu alam. There may be other opinions. The first was the day of revelation, when he was squeezed and then he came out of the cave and he saw the true form of Gabriel, and he had thousands of wings, 70,000 wings. And it filled the horizon. And that was so overwhelming. That's why he ran to Khadijah. And then he saw him in his true form on the ascension. But angels can take various forms. But I just mentioned that as well because by that level of tarbiyah and training of the Prophet, they were finally actually able to shake hands with angels. Don't think they would have been able to see Gabriel if they hadn't been completely transformed and become light themselves. Because only light can see light, and the angels are pure light.